Hi everyone, this has been a highly requested video which is to cover a few contouring kits that are out on the market right now and are very popular, and to share my thoughts with you how they compare to each other, which one is the best, which one is the best value, which one has the best quality, and which one you should probably pass up. So I am going to go over 4 very popular and kind of new palettes, contouring kits, and these are the 4, one from Too Faced, the Anastasia Contour Kit, the Kat Von D Shade and Light Kit, and the Nyx Contouring Kit. And you can buy all of these at either Ulta or Sephora. I will make sure to put links to the full written reviews that I have done with photos and swatches at allurabeauty.com in the description box for you, as well as to show you where you can purchase these if you are interested in buying any of them. And I tried for weeks and weeks to get my hands on the Ulta Contouring Kit for you, which I think is only $19, but I'm pretty sure that they are completely sold out because I looked every day, multiple times a day for I think about 2 or 3 weeks straight, and it always said that it was out of stock. So I don't think that that's going to come back in stock. If you are lucky enough to live next to an Ulta and get your hands on it, I would encourage you to do so. The written reviews on the Ulta website are pretty positive, and so for just $19, I think it probably would be a very good deal. So I'm really sorry that I can't give you my thoughts on that because I haven't been able to test it. But I just wanted to let you know that that is an option out there. And for this video, I will be focusing on these 4 kits. All right, I hope you're subscribed so that you can be eligible for giveaways and so that you don't miss out on videos like this. Let's get to seeing who wins the battle of the contour kits. Okay, so I will talk to you about my very brief thoughts on each of these palettes individually, but because I have taken a lot of time to test these and to write a full written review, I am not going to give you all of my thoughts. If you really want to see a comprehensive review for these individually, please go see the links to the reviews in the description box below. There's no point in me completely repeating myself when I already have all of those thoughts out there for you. So if you don't like reading, I'm sorry. I will give you cliff notes for this video, but I want to focus more on actually comparing them as opposed to regurgitating what I've already written for the review on each individual palette. And part of that will be to share with you the price for these. So let's start with the most recently released kit, which is by Too Faced. This is the Cocoa Contour Chiseled to Perfection Face Contouring and Highlighting Kit. This kit is $40. You get 4 powders. You get 2 highlighting and 2 contouring, and you get a mini slanted kabuki brush, a mirror inside the packaging. The first highlighting shade is a satin finish shade, and the second one is a glittery shade. The powders are both matte, and as you can see, you get one very cool toned taupey one and one warm toned one. I think this is a nice palette. I love the natural cocoa scent that it has. It doesn't have any sort of added irritating fragrance to it, but it does have a lovely chocolate type smell. And the formula for the shadows is, or it's not the shadows, the powders, is very nice. They're fairly smooth. They blend pretty nicely. The highlighting powder is not my favorite just because it has slightly larger specks of glitter, but it doesn't look too gaudy or too glitter ball on the face. So at least that is good. And that's kind of my rundown of my thoughts on this. This is kind of like, for me, a B+ type palette. The Anastasia Contour Kit is also $40, and it does not come with any sort of mirror inside the packaging. You get 3 highlighting shades, 3 contouring shades. You get a mix of taupey, cool toned, and warm toned bronzing or contouring shades, and not all matte, 2 matte highlighting shades and then a shimmering shade. A very nice highlighter, probably my favorite part of this palette because the shimmer is very refined. These 2 highlighting powders don't do much for my skin. They're more like setting powders. The powders are nice, although I think that they could blend a little more effortlessly. And so for me, this is also kind of like a B+ palette. The Kat Von D Shade and Light palette, it has a mirror inside the packaging here. You get 3 highlighting shades and 3 contouring shades. The highlighting shades are smaller and the contouring, oh, I can't get this open. The contouring shades are larger, which for me I like because I use a lot more powder to contour my face, and I use, it's just larger parts of my face that I use contouring for and very small areas of the face that I use highlighting for. So for me, that's a good thing. Other people may use lots of highlighting powder, so maybe that's not as good for you that these come in smaller pans than the contouring shades. So kind of personal preference I guess. These are all matte. There aren't any shimmering shades. And for me, these powders for the highlighting shades actually show up on my skin. And not to the point where you're like, why are you wearing white powder on your face? But to the effect that it brightens or brings forth areas of the face without having any sort of shimmer and without being too stark. I also love these contouring shades. You get your taupe, your more neutral but slightly yellow undertone, and then your really deep bronzing shade here. And these powders blend really, really nicely. This is $46. And then you have NYX's Contouring Kit. This is $24.99. When this first was sort of being sneak peeked, I think they had a price tag of $30. I'm not sure where that price tag came from, or it may have been originally $30, and I think a lot of people balked at that price for a NYX palette. I think it would have been fine at $30 because of the amount of product you get. But anyway, they've reduced it, at least on Ulta's website, to $24.99. You get 8 powders here for highlighting, for contouring. For the highlighting shades, you get 2 matte ones and 2 shimmering ones. And then for the contouring shades, you get this one here has like kind of shimmer, and then the rest of them kind of have a really slight shimmer, but honestly once they're blended onto the skin they may have a slight sheen to them, but they aren't glittery. So I think they are all pretty fair game for both bronzing and contouring if you wanted to use them in those ways. And this one, like I mentioned, is $24.99, so it's the cheapest of all of them. They have a pretty nice formula that blends pretty well. For these highlighting shades, they are not as pigmented as the ones in the Kat Von D palette, but they are more pigmented than the ones in the Anastasia kit. And so on my skin, they make like the slightest difference in terms of brightening or bringing out those areas of the face, but it's pretty subtle. And okay, so those are my brief thoughts on this kit. So as you probably gathered, the most expensive, if you're just looking at price, is the Kat Von D palette at $46. Obviously the most affordable is the NYX one at $24.99, and the two in the middle are at $40. But if you actually look at how much product you get in these, the most expensive are actually the Too Faced and the Anastasia powders, because at $40 each you get around 0.66 or 0.68 ounces, I think, yeah, ounces of product. And so that comes out to actually be more expensive per ounce than the Kat Von D palette, which is 0.72 ounces. So once you work out the dollar to ounce or gram ratio, it is more affordable to get the Kat Von D palette. And then of course, this is the NYX palette is the most affordable of all of them, because this also has 0.72 ounces, the same as the Kat Von D palette, but is only $24.99. So definitely the most affordable choice, but the next one up would be your Kat Von D palette. Now let's talk about just the highlighting powders and comparing these 4 products. The most pigmented highlighting powders are in the Kat Von D palette. Like I mentioned before, this is pretty much the only palette where I can kind of noticeably see a difference by putting these matte highlighting shades onto planes of my face that I want to bring out and brighten. And it's still a subtle effect, which it should be. You don't want to look gaudy or stark in planes of your face. And the one that is next down in terms of pigmentation are the ones in the NYX palette. And I would say the one here there's just one highlighting shade that is not shimmery in the Too Faced palette. So I would say these are kind of on par, the ones in the Too Faced kit and the one in the NYX kit, in terms of how pigmented they are and how noticeable of a difference they are if you put them, you know, say in this area or on your nose or in the middle of your forehead to try to brighten those areas. I think I can see a difference, but it's hard to tell. They're not as pigmented as the ones in the Kat Von D palette, so it's really hard to be honest about whether I can really see a difference or just think I see a difference because I know I'm putting powder there. But I know that the least pigmented ones, at least on my skin and on my skin tone, are the ones in the Anastasia kit. These really make no difference on my skin. They may as well be translucent setting powders, in my opinion, when I am using them, because I can't tell a difference with these two. So there's the rundown in terms of the matte highlighting shades. Now, of course, there are shimmering highlighting shades, which you don't get any of in the Kat Von D palette. So if you're someone who really wants your contouring and highlighting kit to have a shimmering highlighting shade, then you should exclude this from your consideration because this doesn't have any sort of highlighting or shimmering highlighting shades. It only has matte highlighting shades. Or just, you know, if you're okay with that, just be aware that you're going to have another compact that has a highlighting shade that is shimmery, or a single pan shimmering highlighter shade. The Anastasia kit has one shimmering highlighting shade that is very universal. Like I mentioned before, that's my favorite part of this whole kit, is this shimmering highlighting shade, so it's pretty good. NYX is split half and half in terms of having 2 matte and 2 shimmering shades. This one's pretty powerful. It has a high sheen to it. It is really reflective, so be conservative when you are applying that unless you really want a high sheen to the skin. This one is much more natural and more universally suited to a lot more skin tones. And again, they are nice, just depending on what strength you want, because the shimmer is nicely finely milled. It's not sparkly on the skin. And like I mentioned, for me, the least favorite shimmering highlighting shade comes from the Too Faced palette, just because my personal taste is to not have specks of glitter on my skin when it comes to my cheekbone highlighter. I want something that is more illuminating as opposed to sparkly or glittery. And this one, you do kind of have to look more closely to see the sparkle in here or shimmer in here. So I'm not saying it's terrible or anything, it's just for me, it's the least refined of all of the highlighting shades. So it is the one that I would go for the least amount of time. Okay, moving on to the contouring shades. So for the Too Faced palette, they're both matte, which is nice. You get this very taupey cool tone shade, which is great for chiseling out the face and creating those shadows. And then you have more of this bronzing shade, which you could layer on top to create even more of a hollow, or you can use to bronze and deepen up the skin tone. And like I said, this one's unique because you get that chocolate scent, which none of the others can compete with on that front. In the NYX palette, like I mentioned, I would prefer that none of these shades have any sort of shimmer. They're just not the type of colors that you would use really to bronze even. They're just probably too pigmented to do that, so I don't know why there's shimmer in them. But on the other hand, it's not glittery, it's not overt, and they look fairly matte once they are blended over the skin, so anyway, you get a nice mix of warm and cool tones. So again, you have your taupey color, although this is not as cool toned or taupe as the other taupe shades in the other palettes. You get a really deep bronzing shade, so if you're really hollowing out the cheeks, or if you're just darker skinned and this is more suitable to you for a natural contour, that's great. And then you have more of your, this is pretty, well, more on the neutral side, and this one is more on the yellow or warm toned side. So they are giving you a nice variety of colors in here. And that's NYX. Anastasia, again, gives you the sort of taupe color that you can use to hollow out, and then one more neutral and one more warm toned shade, just depending on what skin color you have, what depth you have, what tone you have. And kind of all I have to say about that. They are all matte. Well, this one kind of has a sheen, but again, once it's blended over the skin, they're all pretty much matte. And then finally for the Kat Von D shade, you have your very taupe shade. You have your more neutral, but still pretty, not neutral, I would say. This is fairly yellow undertoned, and then your really deep chiseled out tone or more hollowed out shade. And they are all matte here. And if we're going to talk about just the formula and the quality of the formula, how soft it is, how smooth it is, how well it blends out, I would say that the ones that require sort of the most blending I found are the ones in the Anastasia kit. They're not, I wouldn't say they're difficult to blend out, but they aren't as seamless or smooth or buttery as the ones in the other kits. The next step up in terms of being creamy and blending easily are the Too Faced and NYX palettes. I would say they're pretty comparable. Again, not the most effortless, but pretty darn good in terms of blending and ease of blending. And I just say that because really the champion, in my opinion, for blendability and smooth, creamy texture are the ones in the Kat Von D palette. These are the easiest to blend on my skin. It doesn't take a lot of effort and they're really smooth on the skin. So I wouldn't say any of the other palettes are. I think what I'm trying to say is if this palette didn't exist, I wouldn't have that many criticisms of the other palettes in terms of how smooth they are on the skin, but because I have this to compare it to, I know that this has a better formula than the other ones in the other kits, so that's why I'm able to rank them the way that I am ranking them. I would also say that these are the most pigmented of all of the shades in any of the other palettes, including the highlighting shades and the contouring shades. They just give a lot of color, so I really just have to dab lightly into the pan and I get a strong layer of color on the skin. I did use this palette for contouring my face, so you can kind of see what that looks like in this video. I used all 3 shades. I used this taupe version to chisel out and create any sort of shadows that I want to. Then I go over the places where I want more of a hollow with this really deep shade, so that's basically just this area of the face, and then I use this golden shade for more of like a bronzing color, so I do that mainly on the forehead on top of the more taupe shade. And I actually don't think that I did use the highlighting shades also for places that I wanted to bring out, but I just did that lightly. So it's probably not a mystery at this point which one of these I think is the best. I think that of all of them, the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette is the best. Now, of course, like I mentioned before, if you're someone who wants a shimmering highlighting shade, then this palette cannot provide that for you. So I would go with, when it comes to your other options, I would go with the NYX palette because it has a decent formula, decent pigmentation, and it also has 2 shimmering highlighting options for you. The one that I would reach for least is actually the Anastasia Contour Kit. I know that this is like the most popular thing on YouTube, and I don't buy into that hype. I don't think it's a bad palette. I think that it is a good contouring kit, but I think that there are better options out there. And the Too Faced one, I think if you're the person who really likes that chocolate scent, and if you're someone who isn't looking for as much variety, like you just don't need all of those bronzing shades and all of those different tinted matte highlighting shades especially, then this one might be your best option because you do get a shimmering highlight option and you just get 2 shades, bronzing shades for your purposes, which is contouring and some bronzing if you want to. And if you want more of that matte or satin finish under eye, setting primer, setting powder, or brightener, then you can have that as your option, sort of like a more simplistic, straightforward palette with this one. Okay, I hope that answers your questions in terms of comparing your contouring kit palette options that you have on the market currently. Of course, these are not the only ones. I know everyone and their mother is coming out with a contour kit, including Sephora's carrying of Kevyn Aucoin's contour kit now. I know Laura Mercier has one. I don't know why all these brands think that it's time to come out with contouring kits all of a sudden, but they do. So you have a lot of options out there, but I think these are the most popular ones. Save for the Ulta Contouring Kit, which I'm sad that I didn't get my hands on. But I hope that this was helpful to you. If you have any further questions, I would really request that first you go read the written reviews. And then if I haven't answered your question in those reviews, then I will be happy to answer your questions if you put them in the comment section below. Tell me what your favorite contouring kit is, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. I hope that you liked it. Bye. This is a transitions collection into spring, I believe, and this collection contains 6 set of nail polish colors. They cost $9 each, and you can purchase them through Zoya